It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 117, printed in Part B of House Report 118-272. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 117, printed in Part B of House Report number 118-272, offered by Mr. McCormick of Georgia.
Pursuant to House Resolution 864, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. McCormick, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to offer my amendment number 117 to H.R. 5894, the Labor, Health, and Human Services and Education Appropriate Acts of 2024. My amendment number 117 reduces the salary of Xavier Becerra, Secretary of Health and Human Services, to $1. Secretary Becerra has chosen special interest groups over the American people and blatantly undermined congressional legislative intent with his implementation of the No Surprises Act. The No Surprises Act, passed in 2021, was a bipartisan legislative effort to prevent unexpected medical bills from crushing Americans across the country, which over 50% of all Americans have experienced. Unfortunately, the Biden administration and Secretary Becerra have not implemented the bill as Congress intended, leading to huge backlogs, unpaid claims to health care providers, and patients having less access to quality health care. This is unacceptable, but this shouldn't be a surprise that the Biden administration appointed a lawyer to take on health care challenges, resulting in dismal failure. There have been 4 court cases in Texas alone to address the abysmal implementation of this law, and Secretary Becerra and the Biden administration have lost all 4 court cases. Patients' protection from surprise medical bills should not compromise their access to hospitals and the doctors they need. They shouldn't have the worst experience of their life to add to the worst experience of their life. The solution to this is simple. Align the federal government regulations with what Congress intended for the bill to do, and make the process for resolving disputes fair for all parties. This solution is not only the right thing, but will also avoid the kind of negative consequences that Congress sought to prevent for patients in the first place. Now, I have personally discussed this with Secretary Becerra, and to no avail, he continues to choose profiteers rather than patients. America's hospitals and doctors worked hard with Congress to ensure the dispute resolution process was fair and avoided these negative consequences. Secretary Becerra and his federal bureaucrats have failed to honor those promises to patients and caregivers and have instead continued to ignore Congress's legislative intent. The reason I originally ran for Congress was because of the issue of surprise billing. My first taste in politics was going down to the state capitol with the Medical Association of Georgia, a bipartisan group of doctors trying to resolve this problem. I brought the fight here to D.C. to push the federal government to begin prioritizing doing the right thing for patients instead of prioritizing the profit of special interest groups. My amendment is not about political cheap shots or agendas. It's about protecting the American people from public servants who is no longer keeping their best interests at heart. And with that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Connecticut seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I claim the time in opposition.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you. I rise in strong opposition to this amendment. Secretary Xavier Becerra is a lifelong public servant. He is also a very dear friend. And I suspect he's a personal friend of many members here today on both sides of the aisle. Xavier Becerra spent 24 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, including as a senior member of the Ways and Means Committee and as a member of the House leadership, serving as assistant to the Speaker and as chairman of the House Democratic Caucus. As Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Xavier Becerra leads one of the most important departments in the federal government, including world-leading biomedical research, public health, and drug development. Health and Human Services is responsible for mental health, substance use prevention and treatment, community health centers, LIHEAP, Head Start, Child Care and Development Block Grant, emergency preparedness and response. As Secretary of HHS, he is responsible for Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act health insurance marketplaces, which together provide health care coverage to 160 million Americans, or nearly half of our country. During his tenure at HHS, Secretary Becerra has overseen record-breaking enrollment in health coverage under the Affordable Care Act, as more than 16 million people selected a marketplace health plan in 2023. Secretary Becerra's accomplishments are too numerous to list here. He has served his country honorably for more than 30 years, and he deserves better than this deplorable amendment. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this vindictive amendment. And I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman reserves.
I'm
The
prepared to
gentleman
close.
from Georgia is recognized.
I'm prepared to close.
Does the general...
Go ahead.
Okay, gentleman is recognized. You're prepared to close, though,
Close.
right?
Okay.
Does the gentlewoman... Okay, the gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
So obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I am a doctor. With all the experience that Mr. Becerra has, you would think you would know better. You would think as a member of the House who has watched bipartisan bills pass with almost unanimous consent on something that's supposed to serve the people, that he would know better. You would think as a lawyer he would know how to carry on a case and win a case when it has to do with serving the people. But clearly he has misrepresented something that we passed as a body, something we agreed to as a body to serve the people. And that is why he should be ashamed, and that is why the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Xavier Becerra, should be reduced to $1 for being derelict in his duty and failing the American people. I ask my colleagues for their support in passing this amendment.
Gentleman yields. Gentlewoman is recognized.
I oppose this amendment, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The question is on the amendment offered by a gentleman from Georgia. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.